So if we're going to live with Jesus at the centre and live for God's kingdom, well, what actually becomes important is knowing, well, what are God's priorities? What are his objectives? What are the things which are important to him? And so what we're going to do now is go off on a zooming tour from the beginning of the Bible to the end and see exactly what God holds as important and where he's taking all of human history. Here we go. It all begins with Genesis 12, where basically with one guy, God zooms in onto him and says, well, through you and your family, everyone will be blessed. And in fact, all this mess of sin and what happened beforehand, I'm going to wipe that out. The world which is ravaged, it's going to be set straight again. And so Abraham becomes the recipient of a national blessing, but later on we'll find that he actually becomes the vehicle of an international blessing. From there we go to Deuteronomy 10, where actually we see that where does God's justice and his justice-making decisions take place? Well, yes, it is towards Israel, but in Deuteronomy we also see that God actually extends this to the poor and those who are the alien. And they're pretty unexpected people back in Israel's time, but yet it shows that God has them in mind and he has a wider scope at hand. Swinging through to Psalm 96, we actually see that there's a bigger presence there again. It's not only creation, the psalm talks about trees of the field clapping their hands, but actually the psalmist says, declare his praises throughout all the earth, declare his wonderful deeds. And we see that the emphasis again is all nations, all people. Isaiah the prophet in chapter 49 says, and I'll make you a light for the nations to be my salvation, so that it may reach the ends of the earth. By the reconciliation of Israel to God, God is basically saying that he will use Israel to be the vehicle which brings all people back to him. Well, this is amazing. But then it's no wonder that by the time that you get to Matthew, which talks about Jesus sending his disciples to go and make disciples to the ends of the earth, then you see Acts 1:8, where it talks about that the gospel will go out, not just to Jerusalem, but through all Samaria, Judea, and to the ends of the earth. And then finally, where we get to see this glorious picture, it's a vision of a heavenly reality, which John paints in Revelation chapter 7. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. This story, this direction, is actually God's story. And I'd like to suggest to you that this is actually the story that has to exert pressure on our own stories, our own lives, and orientate them toward God. At the very least, as we consider living for the kingdom, we actually do need to ask ourselves, to what degree does my life sync up with Jesus my Lord? To what degree does my life sync up with the priorities of God? And they're great questions for us to now pause and consider.